We will now have a session, DCI, Interoperability Driven by Standards. While we set up, can I request Anita Mittal to please come up and introduce her panelists while we're doing the setting up to save time. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. This is myself, Anita Mittal, lead for Digital Convergence Initiative, and I'm inviting the other panelists, Maxime from OpenIMIS, Venkatachalam, Venki from OpenG2P, Edward from OpenCRVS, Resham from MOSIP, and Jeremi from OpenSPP. So before we start the panel discussion, I'll do a bit of intro of Digital Convergence Initiative and set the context. And this context is actually context for the workshop, which is happening tomorrow at 2 p.m., where you will see exciting action. All the standards implemented by the DPGs that are sitting here in action, live. So the Digital Convergence Initiative is the initiative for digital transformation in the social protection sector. It is housed under Universal Social Protection 2030. We have 5 implementing partners: GIZ, ILO, World Bank, Expertise France, and FIAP. And we have 2 funders, the German government as well as the EU. And we have an expanding community with other stakeholders from other international organizations like UNICEF, FAO, WFP, and DPGs sitting here, and others, country representatives, and private sector participating in this initiative for digital transformation. So the approach of DCI, we have 4 pillars. Basically, we are creating knowledge in the form of events and knowledge products to disseminate good practices for implementing social protection systems. Second pillar is for development of consensus-based global interoperability standards. The third is providing country support in implementing digital transformation. And under this initiative, we are supporting 21 countries for digital transformation in SP sector, social protection sector, as well as we have a technical help desk where people can reach out for any technical support. And fourth pillar is capacity building, where we provide trainings in person as well as online. So today's focus is on standards. So zooming in, we see that social protection sector involves working of many digital systems. You have the social protection system, social registry, integrated beneficiary registry, as well as other DPIs like identification system, payment system, CRVS, farmer registry, disability registry, which have to work like an orchestra for efficient delivery of social protection programs. So if we digitize all these systems individually, we do get efficiency and effectiveness. But like we heard, DPI to the power of AI, interoperability makes the benefits exponential. If the systems can talk to each other, share data, then people will need to submit their data only once. And things which take months, years, or minutes will become seconds if different systems talk to each other. For systems to talk to each other and interoperability, we need standards. So DCI has already published standards for 6 interfaces where social protection systems interact with the other systems. So all the green ones have been released for use as open standards by anyone in our public GitHub repository. And the DPGs which are collaborating with us in development and consensus building of the standards, their logos are on the, and they are on the panel too. So the benefits of interoperability and digitalization is It improves coordination, outcomes, and helps achieve the goals more effectively and efficiently. And if you would like to participate in this open community of DCI, you have various ways of reaching out to us on our website, email, and social media. With this, we turn on to our panel discussion. So I will start the panel discussion by giving a question to you. So in implementing the integration of ID systems with OpenCRVS, what are the different challenges faced? And what would you suggest as solutions to streamline some of these challenges?
Super. Thanks very much, Anita. I'm Ed from OpenCRVS, open source civil registration system. So we've now had 2, maybe 3 years worth of experience collaborating very closely with our friends at MOSIP, in particular, where we've gathered a sort of body of evidence of integration experience and challenges along the way. And I'm largely going to speak about 2 experiences. As OpenCRVS, I'm going to try and describe in words interfaces, which seems like a bad idea, but tomorrow there's going to be a demo where this will all become much clearer. Anyway, so OpenCRVS is a digital civil registration system. There's largely speaking 2 ways that we interface with an ID system, in this case, MOSIP. One is as parents would declare, for example, the birth of a child, in the past they would potentially show their ID card or try and prove their identity in some way. Well, now, of course, we authenticate them using e-signet as part of the declaration process. So that's one category of interface that we have. Obviously, it's improving the integrity of data within the birth registry and then subsequently also in the ID schema itself. So there's authentication as part of the declaration flow. The other part of the other interface or set of interfaces is on registration of various vital events such as birth, death, marriage, divorce. We can share that information with the ID system to keep it updated and potentially corrections on that data as well. So authentication and registration processing are the 2 categories of interface. So on the first, authentication of parents, there's quite a, I suppose, difficult challenge, particularly in some of the geographies in which we work. So OpenCRVS, well, as our organization, we're all about trying to ensure that we're able to register all vital events, in particular births. That's why we set up OpenCRVS in the first place around the world. And so what that means, obviously, is concentrate on last mile delivery. And it's that last mile delivery which is where the really complicated problems come in. Because when you're online working in a city, you can do online authentication of parents using e-signet. That's great. Beyond that, in an offline context, you might say, well, if you're able to have ING and show your verifiable credential of your ID on your phone, well, that's great. That could work in an offline capacity. But it's really those situations which are really widespread where you're offline and parents don't have access to a mobile phone or a smartphone, for example, where you're really struggling to then do authentication. And in terms of interfacing with the ID system, that's really important for OpenCRVS. So last mile delivery. So we've come up with a kind of the best possible workaround we have at the moment, of course, is to capture data in offline mode. We scan QR codes of IDs, for example, which can be done offline. We do manual entry of identification numbers and name, sex, date of birth of parents. And then we do, the best we have at the moment is a verification process where we verify that ID indeed belongs to that person via their name, sex, date of birth. So we're still working, I think, on these difficult use cases in really remote areas like that, particularly where you're offline and parents don't have smartphones. So that's on authentication and some of the challenges that we're trying to solve. On the registration side, so this is on registration, for example, of a birth within OpenCRVS, which then triggers the creation of a unique identifier within the ID system, or a death registration, which then we've learned doesn't actually deactivate that UIN directly, but we would, MOSIP, for example, would flag that UIN as belonging to a deceased person. So this information comes from the civil registry as the sole trusted and legal source of vital events data. But what we've learned is that these processes don't necessarily happen in order. So you may have a situation that the happy path, of course, is where neither system knows of an infant. The infant is registered, their birth in OpenCRVS, that data is shared with MOSIP, and then later in life they do biometric enrollment related to that UIN. That's all fine. But of course there are other cases which will of course happen where the adult doesn't have a birth certificate. They didn't have their birth registered, but they now have already biometric enrollments. They have an ID card, and then they come for some legal reason to then do a late registration of birth, and then we need to be very careful there in terms of the data which we would share with the ID system, because after they've been biometrically enrolled, we don't want to then start updating their details within the ID system. So it's these type of corner cases, I suppose, which are set to trouble us. So they're not the happy path where things happen in sequence, but obviously as you're rolling out systems, there may be legacy systems in place where the sequence is not always followed.
Thank you so much. So moving on now, this question is to you, Venki. I think I made a claim in the presentation that integration and interoperability of social protection programs with other systems benefits. So could you share some examples how integration with ID system and CRVS improves the efficiency and effectiveness of social protection program delivery?
Okay, I think we are in an ID conference and we've talked about the benefits of ID throughout, I think, 2 days. So it's very clearly, we are a benefit delivery system. And ID remains the only dimension which offers 100% certainty in terms of deduplication, which is the biggest benefit as I see. There are, of course, other benefits in terms of ensuring that there are no leakages and stuff like that, but deduplication remains the cornerstone for a benefit delivery platform. If you talk about the interfacing with OpenCRVS, then we have to bring into the discussion benefit deliveries for where families get benefits because of birth events. So if we take OpenCRVS as the system of truth, then we can directly take the childbirth events into the OpenG2P registry, and that removes the friction that a family will otherwise have to do to bring documents and register into the benefit programs. Similarly, very analogously, we can also talk about benefit programs where we provide benefits to senior citizens, and there again leakage where a death event can directly flag an event, and from a department perspective, it increases the efficiency, it prevents leakage. There is also another very important advantage that we can offer when we integrate with ID system is we normally talk about benefit delivery in terms of cash, digitally transfer and all that. But there are also cases where we will have to provide benefits in the form of kinds, goods. And there, at the last mile, when there is a physicality involved of goods and services, authentication of the person who is claiming and taking that benefit obviously again prevents leakage. So if you look at all of these processes, it is basically there are two dimensions to it. There is prevention of leakage by deduplication and ensuring that there is an identity of the person who is claiming the benefit. And the other thing is it removes friction. It removes that responsibility of the family to come all the way to the program administration and register a child. If we were able to take it directly, as we will show in the demo tomorrow, it removes that friction away and creates that much more an efficient system.
Oh, thank you so much. And I think if you look at the concept of proactive service delivery, there the citizen doesn't, or the person doesn't even have to provide this data. If the government decides that in the case of a disaster or a drought, we need to provide services, then all this can be done through interoperability in an automated manner. Thanks. So this is to you, Jeremi. So what in your view, I'm asking this a view question. Why do you think standards and principles are important for interoperable DPI?
Yes, so I think the problem without standards, you're ending up with doing a lot of different integrations. So like with standards, you have to do investment initially to implement the standard. So that might be a little bit more work than doing one-to-one integration, right? One-to-one can be quick. But like the problem is that as years goes, you need to do more and more integration, and like you're going to start to have like a lot of integration, specific integrations to different systems, and you might end up like with 10, 20 integrations, making it unmanageable. So like using standard APIs that have been like thought about for a while give you this kind of reusability so that you don't have to reinvent a new API every time you need to integrate another system. So I think for me, like that's one of the first things. And I think standards also reduce the risk of vendor lock-in because it makes it easier to switch different systems. So you can switch, like, I mean, from my perspective was social registry or MIS, I can switch off ID system, I can switch off CRVS, I can switch off payment system. That's really the freedom that it gives you to use different implementation of a building block, basically. And then principles also are important. And I think as we're moving to more an AI world where AI is going to have more and more role, it's these principles on the way we build the DPGs or the systems are putting the best practices in the project so that when you're implementing a project, you have those principles and these standards by default, right? So, because, I mean, let's face it, today probably, in 6 months or a year for sure, you can ask an AI to build a social registry. It's gonna do it, for sure. And like in one day you will have it. But will it have the best practices? Will it have all the auditability? Will it have all the security, the access right management, the consent management, right? And so this is all this hard-earned knowledge, experience that are principles in our space that are encoded also in standards that I think are adding a lot of values to leverage this. You're learning from other people to do this. So, yeah.
Thanks, Jeremi. I think you're provoking me, so I'm going to ask you a provocative follow-up. So I think AI does what you ask it to do. So if you ask it to create a social registry, it creates a social registry. But if you ask it to create a social registry aligned with the principles which you value, would it fail or would it succeed?
I think today it would most likely fail. What will happen in 5 years, maybe it's going to be different, but I think today it's going to fail. But like also, it's a lot like about maintainability. And there is a lot of things that are also like not known, right? Like, I mean, I've been in this for almost 10 years. I think Ed quite even more than me, I think. Like, so I think there is also a lot of knowledge that people behind this project are putting that is valuable, that is not always, and especially we're very niche, right? There is not like it's not every day that people are building offline solution for remote areas and like that are building CRVS. So I think there is a lot of things that in the lot of knowledge that you get that from also from organizations like DCI, like all the knowledge sharing that I think are useful for this.
Thanks. So now this question is to you, Maxime. How does OpenIMIS ensure seamless registration of people for a social health insurance project?
Yeah, so for OpenIMIS, basically on health financing field, the problem is the enrollment process, and securing the enrollment process is one of the most important elements to fight against fraud in the social protection scope or on the health insurance system scope. So getting information trustfully from an external party like MOSIP, relying on standards, will definitely help the health financing system to fight against this kind of fraud, and will improve the system and basically the insurance for the final injuries. So that's part of the solution provided with this kind of interoperability following the DCI standards. And obviously, it reduced the burden on the health facility level because registering again and again existing information already present in other systems takes time. And there is a lots of, let's say, mistakes done on the health facility level. So having an integrated system solution between different systems, so MOSIP, OpenCRVS and OpenG2P or OpenSPP, will definitely improve the quality of the data that are managed by the insurance. And this quality is very important to fight against the fraud and the use, the bad usage of the system. So yeah.
Thank you. So I think I'm coming to your last station. So I think we heard in the morning when Ramesh was presenting, now MOSIP itself has got 3 or 4 DPGs under its umbrella or related projects. And you're all using open standards. So how does this use of open standards bring value to countries and to the ecosystem?
So yeah, we do have, MOSIP does offer multiple solutions like eSignet and NG, which are very highly standards driven. Let me talk about eSignet first. As we know, eSignet is an open source, consent-driven framework for online authentication. Now, the very fact that it's driven by standards, specifically OIDC, which is OpenID Connect, that element makes it a natural, I would say, layer of interoperability, and that brings in significant value. I would say it significantly simplifies the process of authentication for countries, which eventually leads to a simplified process of service delivery, because eventually that's what you look at. Also, eSignet being consent-driven, I think Jeremi was talking about consent management. So eSignet being consent-driven also ensures that only the required identity information is being shared. And the very fact that it is open source, it eliminates the problem of being vendor locked in as well. So I think many of these aspects bring in value to countries. While all of this caters to the online verification aspect, we also have NG, which caters to addresses the offline scenarios where it's remote locations or very low internet connectivity. In those cases, we have NG, which is driven by, which leverages standards-based verifiable credentials, cryptographically signed QR codes. You could also top it up with Claim 169 spec, right? And all of these bring it together. So I would say standards is the common thread or a common language that could bring in interoperability across various DPGs, across various systems, like it could be health systems, financial systems. So yeah, interoperability and looking at solutions like eSignet and NG, which cater to both offline and online authentication, that's where I think we see value for countries.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, on that, I would like to take the stage here to thank DCI for all the effort in the last 1 year, because our experience in the last 1 year in the field, there are a lot of conversations now happening in terms of sharing data from registries, from farmer registry for advisory services. And this effort for the last 1 year that DCI has put has been very timely, because in the absence of that, we would have done what Jeremi was just talking about. We would have developed point-to-point interfaces. And I think that's a very timely effort that I would like to place the appreciation. It has been very timely. Thank you.
Thank you.